Marcus stood outside the tall iron gates of Whitmore Academy. The building looked like a castle from old movies. Rich kids walked past him wearing clean uniforms and carrying expensive bags. Their shoes were shiny, their hair was perfect. Marcus looked down at his own clothes. His shirt had a small hole near the bottom. His shoes were old but clean. Mrs. Henderson from Social Services had bought them for him last month. "You ready for this?" Mrs. Henderson asked. She put her hand on his shoulder. Marcus could tell she was nervous too. Her voice shook a little when she talked. Marcus nodded. He was 12 years old and had lived in 7 different homes since he was 5. This was his first time going to a fancy school. The state had given him a scholarship because his test scores were so high. But Marcus did not care about math or science. He only cared about one thing, music. Every night, Marcus dreamed about playing piano. He had learned to play on an old keyboard at the community center. The keys were sticky and some did not work. But when Marcus played, magic happened. The broken keys did not matter. The scratched surface did not matter. Music flowed from his fingers like water from a spring. Mrs. Henderson walked him to the main office. The hallways were wide and clean. Pictures of important people hung on the walls. Students whispered as they walked past Marcus. Some pointed. Some laughed quietly. Marcus kept his eyes forward and tried not to listen. The principal was a tall woman with gray hair pulled back tight. She wore a dark blue suit and silver glasses. Her name was Dr. Whitfield. She looked at Marcus like he was a puzzle she could not solve. "Welcome to Whitmore Academy, Marcus," she said. Her voice was cold like winter air. "We have high standards here." "Very high standards, I hope you understand that." Marcus nodded again. He understood. This place was for rich kids. Kids whose parents drove fancy cars and lived in big houses. Kids who had never moved from home to home with all their things in a plastic bag. "Your schedule is here," Dr. Whitfield said. She handed him a piece of paper. "You will start in Mrs. Thompson's homeroom. She will show you around." Mrs. Thompson was different from the principal. She was short and round with kind eyes. Her dress had small flowers on it. When she smiled, her whole face lit up. "Hello, Marcus," she said warmly. "I am so glad you are here. We need some new energy in this old place." She walked him down the hallway, pointing out different rooms. The library was huge with books from floor to ceiling. The science lab had equipment Marcus had only seen in movies. The art room smelled like paint and creativity, but when they reached the music room, Marcus stopped walking. Through the glass door he could see a beautiful black piano. It was the biggest piano he had ever seen. The wood was so shiny he could see his reflection in it. The keys were white as fresh snow. "That is our concert grand piano," Mrs. Thompson said. "It cost more than most people make in a year. Beautiful, is it not?" Marcus pressed his face to the glass. His breath made a small fog spot on the window. He wanted to touch those keys so badly his fingers hurt. "Do you play?" Mrs. Thompson asked. "A little," Marcus said quietly. He did not want to sound like he was bragging. Rich kids probably did not like poor kids who thought they were good at things. "Well, music class is on. Tuesdays and Thursdays, Mr. Davidson teaches it. He is very good but also very strict. He does not like students who waste his time." The first week at Whitmore was hard. The other students did not talk to Marcus. They ate lunch at tables full of friends who had known each other since kindergarten. Marcus ate alone with his free lunch tray. The food was good, but it tasted lonely. In class, Marcus tried to blend in. He sat in the back and did not raise his hand even when he knew the answers. Some kids were smart, but most seemed more interested in talking about their weekend plans or new clothes during gym class. Marcus learned that being different was dangerous. A boy named Bradley pushed him during basketball. Bradley was tall and strong with perfect teeth and expensive sneakers. "Watch where you are going, foster boy," Bradley said loud enough for everyone to hear. Other kids laughed. Marcus felt his face get hot, but he did not say anything back. He had learned that fighting only made things worse. Social workers did. Not like kids who caused trouble, but everything changed on Tuesday. When music class started, Mr. Davidson was an older man with white hair and a serious face. He wore a black suit that looked expensive. His shoes made clicking sounds when he walked across the room. "Music is not a game," he announced to the class. "It is art, it is discipline, it is something that takes years to master. Most of you will never be truly good at it, but we will try anyway." He asked each student to play something on the piano. Most kids played simple songs with one hand. Some played nothing at all and just giggled with their friends. When it was Marcus's turn, he walked slowly to the big black piano. The bench was soft leather. The keys felt smooth under his fingers. Marcus closed his eyes and started to play. He played a song he had learned from watching videos on the library computer. The music filled the room like warm sunlight. When he finished, the room was completely quiet. Marcus opened his eyes and saw everyone staring at him. Mr. Davidson's mouth was slightly open. The other students looked shocked. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Mr. Davidson asked. "I taught myself," Marcus said honestly. "Impossible," Bradley said from the back of the room. "Poor kids do not know how to play piano. You probably just memorized one song to show off." Some kids laughed, but Mr. Davidson held up his hand for silence. "Play something else," the teacher said. Marcus played 3 more songs. Each one was more beautiful than the last. His fingers moved like dancers across the keys. The music seemed to come from somewhere deep inside him. After class, Mr. Davidson pulled Marcus aside. "I have been teaching music for 30 years, he said. "I have never heard a student play with such natural talent." "How long have you been playing?" "About 2 years, Marcus said. "But only on an old keyboard at the community center. Most of the keys did not work right." Mr. Davidson shook his head in amazement. "We have a school competition coming up in 6 weeks. The winner gets a scholarship to summer music camp. I think you should enter." Marcus felt his heart start beating faster. A real competition. A chance to show everyone what he could do. "But," Mr. Davidson continued, "you will need to practice every day. The other students have been playing for years. They have private teachers and expensive instruments at home. You will have to work twice as hard." "I will," Marcus said. "I promise I will." That night, Marcus lay in his narrow bed at the group home. His room was small, and he shared it with another boy named Tony. Tony was already asleep and snoring softly. Through the thin walls, Marcus could hear the house mother watching television downstairs. He thought about the beautiful piano and how the keys felt under his fingers. He thought about the competition and what it would mean to win. For the first time since coming to Whitmore Academy, Marcus felt hope growing in his chest like a small warm flame. Tomorrow he would start practicing. Tomorrow he would begin working towards something that could change his life forever. He did not know that some people at the school were already planning to make sure he would never get that chance. The next morning, Marcus arrived at school 30 minutes early. He wanted to practice on the beautiful piano before classes started. The hallways were empty and quiet. His footsteps echoed off the polished floors. When he reached the music room, the door was locked. Marcus pressed his face to the glass and looked at the piano sitting alone in the dark room. It seemed to be waiting for him. "Looking for something?" a voice said behind him. Marcus turned around. Mr. Davidson stood there holding a cup of coffee and a set of keys. "I wanted to practice," Marcus said. "Is that okay?" Mr. Davidson smiled for the first time since Marcus had met him. "That is exactly what I hoped you would say." "Come in." He unlocked the door and turned on the lights. The piano seemed to glow under the bright bulbs. Marcus sat down at the bench and started playing. For 30 minutes he forgot about everything else in the world. There was only the music and the feeling of the smooth keys under his fingers. "Time for homeroom," Mr. Davidson said gently. Marcus nodded and stood up. He did not want to leave, but he also did not want to be late for class. "You can come back at lunch if you want," Mr. Davidson said. "I will make sure the door is open." Marcus smiled so wide his cheeks hurt. "Thank you," he said. During morning classes, Marcus could not stop thinking about the piano. In math class, he drew music notes in the margins of his notebook. In history class, he tapped out rhythms on his desk with his pencil. The teacher had to tell him to stop twice at lunch. While other students ate together and talked about their weekend plans, Marcus went back to the music room. Mr. Davidson was there grading papers. "How was your morning?" the teacher asked. "Good," Marcus said. But he was already walking toward the piano. He played for the entire lunch period. Each day got a little better. His fingers moved faster. The music flowed more smoothly. Mr. Davidson sometimes stopped grading papers just to listen. "You have a gift," the teacher said one afternoon. "But gifts mean nothing without hard work. Are you ready to work harder than you have ever worked?" "Before?" "Yes," Marcus said without hesitation. "Good. I'm going to teach you a very difficult piece. It is called Chopin's Minute Waltz. Professional pianists spend months learning this song. You have 5 weeks." Marcus felt nervous and excited at the same time. "Can I hear it first?" Mr. Davidson sat down at the piano. His old fingers moved across the keys like magic. The music was fast and beautiful and seemed to dance in the air. When he finished, Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "It sounds impossible," Marcus said finally. "Most impossible things just take practice," Mr. Davidson replied. "Let me show you the first part." Every day, Marcus came to school early and stayed late. He practiced during lunch and study hall. His fingers began to learn the difficult patterns. Slowly, very slowly, the music started to make sense, but not everyone was happy about Marcus's progress. Bradley and his friends had been watching. They saw Marcus going to the music room every day. They heard other students talking about how good he was getting. Bradley's face got red whenever someone mentioned Marcus's name. "It is not fair," Bradley complained to his friends. "I have been taking piano lessons since I was 5. My parents pay $200 a week for private teachers. Some foster kids should not be better than me." Bradley's father was on the school board. His mother ran the parent organization. His family had donated money to build the new library. Bradley was used to being the best at everything because his parents made sure of it. "We should do something," said a girl named Madison. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were mean. "The competition is in 3 weeks. We cannot let him embarrass our school." "What can we do?" asked another boy named James. "We cannot make him worse at playing." Bradley smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "We do not have to make him worse. We just have to make sure he cannot play at all." The 3 friends started making a plan. They knew Marcus practiced alone in the music room. They knew when teachers had meetings and when hallways were empty. Most importantly, they knew that no one would believe a foster kid over students from important families. Meanwhile, Marcus was getting better every day. The minute waltz was starting to feel natural under his fingers. Mr. Davidson was amazed at how fast he was learning. "I have never seen anything like this," the teacher told Mrs. Thompson one afternoon. "This boy could be a professional musician someday. Real talent like this comes along maybe once in a lifetime." Mrs. Thompson smiled. "He deserves something good to happen to him. That child has been through more than most adults." "What do you mean?" Mr. Davidson asked. Mrs. Thompson looked around to make sure no one could hear them. "His file says his parents died in a car accident when he was 5. He has been in foster care ever since. Some of the homes were not very nice. He learned to stay quiet and not cause trouble because speaking up only made things worse." Mr. Davidson felt sad and angry at the same time. Well, he found his voice through music. "That piano sings when he plays it." 2 weeks before the competition, something strange started happening. When Marcus came to practice in the morning, the piano bench was always too high or too low. The sheet music would be on the floor instead of on the piano. Small things, easy to fix. But annoying, Marcus did not complain. He just adjusted the bench and picked up the music. He thought maybe the cleaning people had moved things around. Then bigger problems started. One morning, 3 of the piano keys stuck when he pressed them. Marcus had to practice around the broken notes. When Mr. Davidson arrived, he was very upset. "This piano was perfect yesterday," the teacher said. He looked under the keys and found small pieces of paper wedged inside. "How did this happen?" Marcus shrugged. "I do not know." Maybe something fell inside? Mr. Davidson pulled out the paper pieces and tested each key. Everything worked fine again. The next week was even worse. Marcus came to practice and found that someone had put tape over the pedals. Another day, all the sheet music was missing. Once, the piano bench had a sticky substance on it that got on Marcus's clothes. "This is not accidents," Mr. Davidson said angrily. "Someone is doing this on purpose." "Who would do that?" Marcus asked. But he already knew. He had seen Bradley and his friends watching him through the music room windows. He had heard them whispering and laughing in the hallways. "We should tell Dr. Whitfield," Mr. Davidson said. Marcus shook his head quickly. "No, please do not do that." "Why not?" Marcus looked down at his hands. "No one will believe me. They will think I am making up stories to get attention. Foster kids who cause trouble get moved to different schools." Mr. Davidson wanted to argue, but he could see the fear in Marcus's eyes. This boy had learned that adults did not always protect children who needed help. "Then we will just have to be extra careful," the teacher said. "The competition is next week. After that, it will not matter what they do," but Marcus was worried. Each day, the sabotage got worse. Someone was trying very hard to make him give up. He wondered what would happen on the day of the competition. Would they try to ruin that too? On Friday afternoon, Marcus stayed late to practice. The school was almost empty. Most teachers had gone home and the cleaning crew had not arrived yet. Marcus played his piece over and over until his fingers ached. When he finally stopped, he heard footsteps in the hallway. The sound got closer and then stopped right outside the music room door. Marcus looked over and saw 3 shadows through the frosted glass. He heard whispering but could not make out the words. After a few minutes, the shadows moved away and the footsteps faded down the hall. Marcus felt a chill run down his back. Something bad was coming. He could feel it like a storm approaching on a clear day. He packed up his sheet music and turned off the lights. As he walked through the empty hallways toward the exit, Marcus made a decision. No matter what Bradley and his friends tried to do, he would not give up. This competition was his chance to show everyone that foster kids could be just as good as rich kids. Maybe even better. He did not know that in 3 days they would try to destroy him in front of the entire school. And he definitely did not know that their cruel plan would backfire in the most amazing way possible. Monday morning came too fast. Marcus woke up before his alarm clock rang. His stomach felt like butterflies were flying around inside it. Today was the competition. He put on his best clothes. Mrs. Henderson had bought him a new white shirt and black pants for the special day. The shirt was a little too big, but it was clean and pressed. Marcus looked at himself in the small mirror above the dresser. He looked like he belonged at a fancy school. At least he hoped he did. At breakfast, the other kids at the group home wished him good luck. Tony, his roommate, gave him a candy bar to eat before the competition. "For energy," Tony said with a grin. "My mom used to give me chocolate before big tests." Marcus smiled and put the candy bar in his pocket. It felt good to have someone cheering for him. When Marcus arrived at school, the building buzzed with excitement. Parents were arriving in expensive cars. Women wore fancy dresses and jewelry. Men had on suits that probably cost more than Marcus's. Entire wardrobe. The competition would take place in the school auditorium. Marcus had never been inside it before. When he walked through the doors, his mouth fell open. The room was huge, with red velvet seats and golden decorations on the walls. A spotlight shone down on a beautiful black piano sitting alone on the stage. "Magnificent, is it not?" Mr. Davidson said, appearing beside Marcus. "It is amazing," Marcus whispered, "but also scary." "Fear is normal," the teacher said kindly. "Even professional musicians get nervous. The secret is to use that energy to make your playing even better." Marcus nodded, but his hands were shaking a little. In a few hours, he would sit at that piano, in front of hundreds of people. Some would be rooting for him, but many would want him to fail. "I have something for you," Mr. Davidson said. He handed Marcus a small wrapped box. Inside was a pair of black dress shoes. They were not new, but they were polished until they shined like mirrors. "I cannot take these," Marcus said. They were my son's, Mr. Davidson explained. He wore them to his first piano recital 20 years ago. I think he would want you to have them. Marcus's eyes filled with tears, but he blinked them away. Thank you, he said quietly. The shoes fit perfectly. Marcus felt taller and more confident wearing them. Other students were arriving for the competition. There were 12 performers total. Most came with their parents and private teachers. They carried expensive sheet music books and talked about summer, music camps, and college plans. Marcus sat alone in the back of the auditorium and watched them practice on smaller pianos in the side rooms. They were all very good. Some had been playing for 10 years or more. Bradley walked past Marcus without looking at him, but Marcus saw him whisper something to Madison and James. All three of them smiled in a way that made Marcus's stomach hurt. Attention, competitors, Dr. Whitfield announced from the stage. You will perform in alphabetical order by last name. You have drawn numbers to determine who goes first. Marcus's last name was Rivera. He would be 9th out of 12. That gave him time to watch other students and calm his nerves. But it also meant more time to worry about what might go wrong. The first student was a girl named Ashley. She played a Mozart sonata perfectly, but without much feeling. The audience clapped politely when she finished. The second student was Bradley. He walked onto the stage like he owned it. His parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Bradley played a difficult Rachmaninoff piece. His technique was very good, but Marcus could tell he was showing off. The music sounded like work instead of joy. Still, the audience loved it. Bradley's parents stood up and clapped loudly. Other parents nodded with approval. When Bradley took his bow, he looked directly at Marcus and smirked. More students performed. Each one was talented and well prepared. Marcus began to feel smaller and smaller in his seat. These kids had every advantage money could buy. What was he doing here? Marcus Rivera, Dr. Whitfield called. Marcus's heart started pounding so hard. He thought everyone could hear it. He stood up on shaky legs and walked toward the stage. The auditorium seemed to grow bigger with each step. When he reached the piano, Marcus sat down on the bench and adjusted the height. He placed his hands on the keys and looked out at the audience. Hundreds of faces stared back at him. Some looked curious, others looked skeptical. A few looked hostile. In the back, he spotted Mrs. Henderson and Mrs. Thompson. They gave him encouraging smiles and thumbs up. Mr. Davidson stood near the side of the stage with his fingers crossed. Marcus took a deep breath and began to play. The first notes of Chopin's Minute Waltz filled the auditorium. But something was wrong. Very wrong. 3 of the keys made no sound at all. 2 others stuck halfway down and would not come back up. Another key made a strange buzzing noise instead of music. Marcus felt panic rise in his throat. Someone had sabotaged the piano. He looked toward Mr. Davidson, who was staring at the instrument with shock and anger. The audience began to murmur. Some people laughed quietly. Others shook their heads with disappointment. Marcus could hear Bradley and his friends giggling in the front row. Technical difficulties, Dr. Whitfield announced. Please continue as best you can. Marcus had 2 choices. He could stop playing and leave the stage in embarrassment, or he could find a way to make music despite the broken instrument. He chose to fight. Marcus adjusted his playing to work around the broken keys. When a note would not sound, he played a different one that fit the harmony. When keys stuck, he played louder on the working keys to cover the silence. When the buzzing key made noise, he turned it into part of the rhythm. The Minute Waltz transformed into something new. It was still beautiful, but now it was also brave. Marcus played with more passion than ever before. His face showed complete concentration. His whole body moved with the music. Slowly, the audience stopped murmuring. The giggles faded away. People leaned forward in their seats to listen more carefully. What they heard was not a perfect performance of a famous piece. What they heard was a young musician creating art out of disaster. They heard someone refusing to give up when everything went wrong. Marcus played the fast middle section with such intensity that people forgot about the broken keys. He made the piano sing despite its injuries. When he reached the final notes, he played them with such joy and triumph that the entire auditorium held its breath. The last note faded into silence. For a moment, no one moved. Then Mrs. Henderson started clapping. Mrs. Thompson joined her. Mr. Davidson applauded so hard his hands turned red. One by one, other people began to clap. Then more, then everyone. The applause grew louder and louder until it filled the entire auditorium. People stood up from their seats. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others shook their heads in amazement. Marcus sat at the broken piano, stunned by the reaction. He had expected boos and laughter. Instead, he was getting the longest standing ovation in the history of Whitmore Academy competitions. When the applause finally died down, Dr. Whitfield walked onto the stage. Her face was very serious. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said into the microphone, "it appears someone deliberately damaged this piano before Mr. Rivera's performance. This is completely unacceptable behavior and will be investigated thoroughly." She looked directly at Bradley and his friends. Their faces had gone pale white. "However," Dr. Whitfield continued, "what we just witnessed was not a performance ruined by sabotage. What we witnessed was a true musician turning disaster into triumph. That, ladies and gentlemen, is what real artistry looks like." The audience erupted in applause again. Marcus stood up and took a bow. Still not quite believing what had happened. As he walked off the stage, Marcus passed Bradley in the wings. The older boy's face was red with anger and embarrassment. "You think you won something?" Bradley hissed quietly. "You are still just a nobody foster kid. This will not change anything." Marcus stopped walking and looked Bradley in the eyes. "You are right," Marcus said calmly. "I am a foster kid. But I'm not nobody, and after today, everyone knows it." For the first time since arriving at Whitmore Academy, Marcus walked tall through the hallways. His head was high and his shoulders were straight. He had faced the worst these rich kids could throw at him, and he had turned it into something beautiful. The competition was not over yet. 3 more students still had to perform. But Marcus already felt like he had won something more important than any contest. He had won respect, he had won dignity. Most importantly, he had won the knowledge that no one could ever take his music away from him. What happened next would surprise everyone, including Marcus himself. The 3 remaining students performed after Marcus. Each one played perfectly on a quickly repaired piano. But something had changed in the auditorium. The audience listened politely, but without the excitement they had shown for Marcus's performance. When the last student finished, the judges went to a side room to discuss the results. Marcus sat in the back row next to Mrs. Henderson and Mrs. Thompson. His heart was still beating fast from the adrenaline. "I am so proud of you," Mrs. Henderson whispered. "That was the most amazing thing I have ever seen." Mrs. Thompson nodded. "In agreement. You turned their cruelty into something beautiful. That takes real strength." Across the auditorium, Marcus could see Bradley sitting with his parents. The family was having what looked like a very serious conversation. Bradley's father kept gesturing angrily, while his mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Dr. Whitfield returned to the stage with a microphone. The room grew quiet. "Before we announce the winner," she said, "I want to address what happened here. Today, during our investigation, we discovered that 3 students deliberately damaged the piano before Mr. Rivera's performance. This behavior is completely against everything Whitmore Academy stands for." She paused and looked directly at Bradley, Madison, and James. "These students will face serious consequences for their actions. But more importantly, they have shown us all what happens when privilege is used to hurt others instead of help them." Bradley's face turned bright red. His parents looked like they wanted to disappear into their seats. "However," Dr. Whitfield continued, "we also witnessed something extraordinary today. We saw a young man face adversity with grace, creativity, and incredible talent. We saw someone refuse to be defeated by cruelty." The audience began to murmur with anticipation. "The judges have made their decision, but first I want to say that the real winner today was not just one student. The real winner was the power of music to triumph over meanness. The real winner was the reminder that talent and character matter more than money or status. Marcus felt his palms getting sweaty. He had played well under impossible circumstances, but the other students had performed perfectly. Surely one of them would win. The winner of this year's Whitmore Academy piano competition is ... double quote. Dr. Whitfield smiled. Marcus Rivera. The auditorium exploded with applause. People jumped to their feet cheering. Mrs. Henderson hugged Marcus so tight he could barely breathe. Mrs. Thompson was crying happy tears. Marcus felt like he was floating as he walked back onto the stage. Dr. Whitfield handed him a trophy and a certificate for the summer music camp scholarship. The trophy was heavy and golden and had his name engraved on a small silver plate. "Would you like to say something?" Dr. Whitfield asked, holding out the microphone. Marcus had never spoken to a large crowd before. His voice shook when he began to talk. "I want to thank Mr. Davidson for believing in me," he said, "and Mrs. Thompson and Mrs. Henderson for always being kind. I also wanted to thank Whitmore Academy for giving me this chance." He paused and looked out at the audience. In the front row, he could see some of the students who had been mean to him over the past weeks. They looked ashamed and uncomfortable. "I know some people thought I did not belong here because I am a foster kid," Marcus continued. "Maybe they were right. Maybe I do not belong at a fancy school with fancy things." The audience grew very quiet. Some people shifted in their seats. "But I learned something today," Marcus said, his voice getting stronger. "Music does not care if you are rich or poor. Music does not care what kind of clothes you wear or what kind of car your parents drive. Music only cares if you have something real to say." He held up the trophy. "This is not just mine. This belongs to every kid who has ever been told they are not good enough. Every kid who has ever been picked on for being different. Every kid who has ever had a dream that other people tried to crush." The applause started again and did not stop for a full 5 minutes. After the ceremony, people crowded around Marcus to congratulate him. Parents who had ignored him before suddenly wanted to shake his hand. Students who had never spoken to him asked about his music lessons, but the most surprising visitor was Bradley's father, Mr. Whitmore. He was a tall man in an expensive suit with graying hair and tired eyes. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology. My son's behavior today was inexcusable. Our whole family is ashamed." Marcus did not know what to say. Adults rarely apologize to kids, especially adults who were rich and important. "Bradley will be attending a different school next year," Mr. Whitmore continued. "We think he needs to learn some lessons about respect and humility. Maybe someday he will understand what real strength looks like." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is a check for $5,000, he said. "I want you to use it for music lessons or a good piano or whatever you need to keep developing your talent. The world needs more people like you." Marcus stared at the envelope. $5,000 was more money than he had ever seen at one time. "I cannot take this," he said. Double quotes. "Yes, you can," Mr. Whitmore replied firmly. "Consider it an investment in your future. You have something special, son. Do not ever let anyone make you forget that." Later that evening, Marcus sat in his small room at the group home. The trophy sat on his dresser next to the check and the scholarship certificate. Tony was already asleep in the other bed. Marcus thought about everything that had happened. 6 months ago, he had been just another foster kid bouncing between homes and schools. Tonight, he was a competition winner with a scholarship to music camp and enough money to buy a real piano. But the best part was not the trophy or the money. The best part was the feeling inside his chest. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt like he truly belonged somewhere. He belonged in the world of music, where talent mattered more than anything else. 3 weeks later, Marcus started at the summer music camp. He met other young musicians from all over the country. Some were rich and some were poor, but none of that mattered when they played together. On the first day of camp, Marcus's teacher was a famous pianist who had performed with orchestras around the world. Her name was Dr. Chun, and she had heard about what happened at the Whitmore Academy competition. I want you to play something for me, she said after introducing herself. Marcus sat down at the beautiful grand piano in the practice room. He closed his eyes and began to play Chopin's Minute Waltz, but this time, all the keys worked perfectly. When he finished, Dr. Chun was quiet for a long moment. Technically, that was very good, she said finally, but I want to hear you play. Like you did at the competition. I want to hear you play with the passion that comes from overcoming something difficult. Marcus understood. He had learned that the most beautiful music often comes from the hardest moments in life. Pain and struggle could be transformed into something that touched people's hearts. He began to play again. This time, he played with all the emotion of a 12-year-old boy who had spent his whole life being told he was not good enough. He played with the joy of discovering that he had a gift no one could take away. He played with the hope of a future, where dreams could come true even for kids like him. When he finished, Dr. Chun wiped a tear from her eye. Now that, she said, is how you make music that changes the world. Years later, when Marcus became a famous pianist himself, he would always remember the day a broken piano taught him the most important lesson of his life. He learned that real strength comes not from having everything perfect, but from finding beauty in the broken places. And whenever young musicians asked him for advice, Marcus would tell them the same thing. Music is not about playing all the right notes. Music is about putting your whole heart into whatever notes you can play. Sometimes, the most beautiful songs come from the most damaged instruments. The trophy from Whitmore Academy still sits on Marcus's piano today. Next to it is a small framed photo from that day showing a 12-year-old boy taking a bow in front of a standing ovation. In the photo, Marcus's face shows surprise and joy and the kind of confidence that comes from discovering you are stronger than you ever imagined. But most importantly, the photo shows a moment when a room full of people learned that judging others by their circumstances instead of their character is always a mistake. They learned that sometimes the person you least expect can teach you the most important lessons about courage, dignity, and grace. Marcus Rivera had walked into Whitmore Academy as a nobody foster kid. He walked out as a young man who knew exactly who he was and what he was capable of achieving, and that made all the difference in the world. 5 years passed since that amazing day at the music competition. Danny was now 17 years old and getting ready to graduate from high school. He had grown taller and his voice was deeper, but his love for music was stronger than ever. The old group home where Danny lived was different now. Mrs. Garcia, the house mother, had put a real piano in the common room after hearing about Danny's success. It was not as fancy as the one at school, but it worked perfectly and filled the house with beautiful sounds every evening. Danny still practiced every day, but now he also taught the younger kids who lived there. A girl named Rosa was learning to play simple songs. A boy called Tommy could already play 3 pieces by heart. Danny showed them that music was a way to express feelings when words were not enough. "You make it look so easy," Rosa said one afternoon as Danny helped her with finger positions. "It was not always easy," Danny replied with a smile. "I had to learn that the most important part is not being perfect. The most important part is telling your story through the music." Danny's music teacher from summer camp, Dr. Chun, still gave him lessons over video calls. She had become like a mentor and friend. Every month she sent him new pieces to learn and challenged him to grow as a musician. "I have exciting news," Dr. Chun said during one of their lessons. "There is a national youth competition coming up. The winner gets a full scholarship to any music college in the country. I think you should enter." Danny felt his heart skip a beat. A full college scholarship would change everything. He could study music seriously and maybe become a professional pianist like he had always dreamed. "But there will be students from all over America," Danny said. "Kids who have been taking private lessons since they were tiny. Kids with grand pianos in their bedrooms." "Yes," Dr. Chun agreed. "But remember what happened at your school competition. You have something they do not have. You have a story to tell through your music. You have overcome things that made you stronger." Danny thought about it for several days. The competition would be held in New York City, which seemed like a different world from his small town. Hundreds of the best young musicians in the country would be there. Was he really good enough to compete with them? Mrs. Henderson, his social worker, encouraged him to try. She had watched Danny grow from a scared 12-year-old into a confident young man. Music had given him confidence and purpose. "What is the worst thing that could happen?" she asked. "You go to New York, you play your best, and maybe you do not win, but you will have tried. You will have shown yourself that you belong on that stage." Danny decided to enter the competition. He had 6 months to prepare. Dr. Chun suggested he play Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2, one of the most difficult and beautiful pieces ever written for piano and orchestra. "It is a very challenging piece," she warned, "but it tells a story of struggle and triumph. It starts dark and sad, but ends with incredible joy and power. I think it matches your own story." Danny began practicing the concerto every day. It was much harder than anything he had learned before. His fingers had to move faster than ever. His left hand and right hand had to do completely different things at the same time. Sometimes he felt like giving up, but every time he felt frustrated. Danny remembered that day 5 years ago when the piano keys did not work. He had learned then that obstacles could become opportunities if you faced them with creativity and determination. The months went by quickly. Danny's playing got better and better. Mrs. Garcia and the other kids at the group home loved listening to him practice. Even the neighbors would sometimes stand outside and listen through the windows. 1 month before the competition, something unexpected happened. A man in a fancy suit came to visit Danny at the group home. His name was Mr. Peterson, and he was a talent scout for a music company. "I heard about your story from Dr. Chun," Mr. Peterson explained. "We are looking for young musicians with both talent and interesting backgrounds. We would like to offer you a recording contract." Danny could not believe what he was hearing. A recording contract meant he could make an album and people all over the world could hear his music. "But there is one condition," Mr. Peterson continued. "You would have to skip the national competition and start recording immediately. This is a limited-time offer." Danny felt torn. Part of him wanted to take the recording deal right away. It would guarantee his future in music. But another part of him wanted to test himself against the best young musicians in the country. "Can I think about it?" Danny asked. "You have 1 week," Mr. Peterson replied. "After that, we will offer the contract to someone else." That night, Danny called Dr. Chun to ask for advice. "What does your heart tell you?" she asked. "I want to do the competition," Danny said without hesitation. "I have been preparing for months. I want to see how far I can go." "Then that is your answer," Dr. Chun said. "Recording contracts will come and go, but chances to prove yourself on the biggest stage do not come often. Follow your dreams, not just the easy path." Danny called Mr. Peterson the next day and politely declined the recording offer. He was going to New York to compete 2 weeks before the competition. The local newspaper wrote a story about Danny. The headline read, "Local Foster Teen Heads to National Music Competition." The article told his whole story, from the broken piano at school to his success at summer camp. After the story was published, amazing things started happening. Local businesses donated money to help pay for Danny's trip to New York. The piano store downtown offered to let him practice on their best grand piano. Even some students from his old school sent messages of support, but the biggest surprise came from an unexpected source. Bradley, the boy who had sabotaged the piano 5 years ago, sent a letter to Danny. The letter said he was sorry for what he had done. Bradley explained that he had learned a lot about himself since then. He had spent time doing community service and had learned to appreciate people who worked hard for their success instead of having everything handed to them. "You taught me that real strength comes from facing challenges, not from avoiding them," Bradley wrote. "I will be cheering for you at the competition. You deserve every good thing that happens to you." Danny was surprised by the letter. He had not thought about Bradley in years. It felt good to know that people could change and grow, just like he had. Finally, the day came to leave for New York. Mrs. Henderson drove Danny to the airport. He had never been on an airplane before and felt nervous and excited at the same time. "Remember," Mrs. Henderson said as they waited for his flight, "you have already won just by getting this far. 5 years ago, you were a scared kid who thought he did not belong anywhere. Now you are going to compete with the best musicians in the country. That is already a victory." The airplane ride was amazing. Danny looked out the window and watched his small town disappear below the clouds. He was flying toward his dreams, carrying nothing but a suitcase and the music in his heart. When the plane landed in New York City, Danny felt like he was stepping into a movie. The buildings were taller than anything he had ever seen. The streets were full of people from all over the world. The energy was incredible. His hotel was nice but simple. That night, Danny practiced on the small electric keyboard he had brought with him. Tomorrow, he would have his first chance to practice on the actual concert hall piano. In 3 days, he would perform in front of judges who would decide his future. As he fell asleep that night, Danny thought about all the people who had helped him get to this moment. Mrs. Henderson, who had always believed in him, Mrs. Garcia, who had given him a home where he could practice, Dr. Chun, who had taught him that music was about more than just playing the right notes. But most of all, he thought about that 12-year-old boy who had refused to give up when everything went wrong. That boy had grown into a young man who was ready to chase his biggest dream yet. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but Danny was ready for them. He had learned that the most beautiful music comes from the deepest struggles. And his story was just beginning to reach its most exciting movement.